All right, guys. So we took a look at my physique. We are actually 6 months out right now from when I would potentially start my diet in March for the 2025 pro season. We went through the mandatories, and what do you guys think? Are there points in my physique that have improved from last time? And if so, what do you think they are?
Yeah, I think arms are they weren't the primary aim of emphasis, but they're reaping the rewards. I think back and delts for sure. Really, I think you've improved all over in terms of areas to bring up. I think we all kind of agreed, like lower lat areas, just an area just to get a little bit more thickness, density. So yeah, just being very deliberate with back work, I think is really the only main piece of feedback I have.
Okay, so if my lower lats need a little bit more work, does that mean we need to do something different with the program?
I think if we were to do anything program, it may be, like, I don't think we're lacking in volume for anything. But this is a situation where I think if we were to specialize at all, it would be more so dialing back in, some areas, not till March. I think we can still be above the minimum effective dose, but I don't think we necessarily need to try to optimize some of the other things while we try to further optimize the back stuff. So yeah, I think that's one thing a lot of people do often is they assume adding volume, but in your case, I think we have enough real estate to work with from other movements where we can just kind of pull back marginally in those areas, and I think see some potential benefit.
Gotcha. So if we were to pull back on certain things just to essentially make room for the more targeted lower lats, which muscle groups do you think are responding in a way that's like, we're good? If we didn't make any more progress there?
Well, the ones that are responding really well probably are sucking a lot of resources out of you anyway. So I think potentially maybe some lower body quad work, maybe. Not a lot, maybe a little bit of pressing, but it's one of those things we don't want to go too crazy with, but maybe just free up another, total volume reduction of 5 to 10 sets, I think could do the trick.
Okay, so we pull back a little bit on pressing, we pull back a little bit on quads, we could pull back a little bit on arms.
You could, but I think they're I don't know how much of a difference that's going to make.
And I do like having big arms. It's going well.
If it's going well, you can never have too big.
Yeah, that's one of those muscle groups. It's like you didn't need to work on that, but it's only going to help. Yeah. So, okay. So you saw lower lats. We're thinking last 6 months we pull back a little bit on quads and pressing to make a little more room for targeting the lower back. And this is probably I'll shift to you, Berto, because I think you've also got a very good eye of how I lose body fat. And you were saying you think I'm about maybe 12% over stage weight? 13%, which is good. I actually did the math. That would put me on stage around 80 kilos, which I was in the mid 78s to 79s. So, 2 pounds, I'll take it, And again, there's another 6 months. So I will be working feverishly towards that next goal towards that goal over the next 6 months. Do you agree with Brian's assessment as far as what you think is lacking in my physique or could benefit the most from?
Well, when you were posing, just so the people know, I was doing this because that's how you're supposed to do it. Your buddy, picture that's the mirror. I'm like, hit a front double bicep, Eric. Do it with me. Minor. Do the squat. There you go. So my squinting goggles told me, I think shoulders and arms have made an impressive turnaround. I think your upper back has always been pretty nice. Like there's some good separation there, some good angles. I think the lat though is it's just not a very thick belly on you. So yeah, it might be as developed as say certain segments of your upper back, but it just doesn't show the same. So yeah, I would say that needs to be emphasized a little bit more. pecs are about the same, I'd say.
Yeah.
Right? More or less. But I mean, those kind of like had a burst similar to what your shoulders and arms are doing right now, a few years back, right?
Yeah.
I'd say,
And that showed up in my 2019 season.
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, legs I like to see. I guess you're like the inverse of me, I think, in some ways, where like my bone structure from like the waist down is like so much thicker than my upper. And I think we use like your upper body bone structure is like, you know, it's decently thick, even though you top prep on it. It's pretty thick relative to your lower half.
I think it's a shape issue.
Yeah.
You know, although my ankles are actually proportionally larger than my wrists.
Yeah.
But I think the issue is not my upper body bone width or anything like that, but it's actually just the structure. I don't think I have a very large rib cage, and I don't think there's a very large distance area.
Yeah.
But like, it's not like I have bird bones.
Yeah,
They're just not
Yeah.
gift, like they're not Phil Heath bones.
Yeah. So I'd say lats, quads.
Lats and quads.
Lats and quads.
All right.
Yeah.
Oof. We've got some issues here.
I don't think quads. I'm just looking at things that would have a high return on taking out. I don't think quads. It's not like if your quads grew, it would be detrimental to your physique. It would never enhance it. But
Can I make one thing I've noticed is that I haven't seen much movement in my quads from the training I've been doing, which actually kind of surprised me. Not in a positive way, but I have lately seen some movement in my glutes and hams.
Yeah.
And I actually have made some substantial changes, like the hex bar RDLs, and also the Smith machine good mornings in place of the back extension. So, they made a little bit of movement, and I thought I could visibly see it, but I noticed my quads really haven't changed much. So, not always a bad thing, though.
I think in regards to like the hardness, they're just a little bit. They look better at different body weights, but they haven't done a whole lot.
Yeah. So does that mean we should or shouldn't pull back on quads, or do you think it's worth trying to invest and try to bring them up in the next 6 months?
I think so, because that's a big part of the front relax.
Yep.
Right. Is saying, can you do this? Right. So I think it's worth investigating.
Okay.
But I don't know, man. At the same time, they are getting better. It's just significantly slower than
Everything else.
is. And that might have to do it because from a training age dynamic, right? You know, you've done other, you know, when you were polygamous when it came to this stuff, those other sports did involve, you know, squat patterns.
Yeah, like the glutes, quads are probably the things. Glutes, quads, and pecs are probably the things that stayed the most developed when I had my more specialized forays into strongman weightlifting and powerlifting, for sure. Okay, so potentially that means where we would pull back.
I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wouldn't try to address both at the same time. I think that's probably. I mean, I think what we could do is
Alternate blocks.
Yeah, we could do that and just kind of push one thing, pull back a bit the next block.
Okay.
That's how I would approach it.
I like
and
that.
we could pull, when we pull back to focus on quads, for example, we could pull back and maybe at some other areas and leave back similar volumes still. But I don't think we should be adding volume.
Yeah.
I honestly don't necessarily think we should be adding volume to either of them. I think it's more so
Exercise selection
and pulling potentially back in some of the other areas.
Okay.
I know that doesn't leave a lot, but even like if glutes and hams are responding well, and granted those are going to kind of go hand in hand some with back development, like the erectors and everything. But yeah, that could be an area that we tap into a little bit.
And for what it's worth, I always try to balance this with my inner psychotic obsessive bodybuilder, but I'm recovering very well. Like the elbow tendonitis issues have pretty much gone away. Since we switched to the hex bar RDLs, I actually feel like I have more to give for the lower body. It's more of just like where and when do we put it, which is why, for those who don't know, I actually have snuck a little bit of work onto a day 6. So now Wednesday is my only full day off, and now Sunday I do some forearm work, some calf work, and then a little bit of lower body work, because it's between my 2 lower body days. I have 48 hours. And I've done that now for 2 weeks, and I felt good going into my Tuesday lower body session. I'm not pushing it crazy. It's like 4 sets of quads, hams, and glutes, and 4 sets of calves. So we're sneaking that in there. So I can handle more, but I think there may be potential where right now I'm leg pressing twice a week. We could turn one of those into like cyclist squats, try to make them a little more quad dominant when we do a quad specialization phase. We could do something like symmetrical quad emphasis, where we pull back a bit from, say, pressing, and then we could go back emphasis, where we pull back a little bit from like limb work, like that.
Maybe hamstrings.
Yeah.
I'm one area.
Sure.
There's nothing that's drastically out of balance at all.
For sure.
It's a good. We're in a good spot. It's just making sure that we're not trying to redline everything at once. That's the biggest thing.
Okay. So any specific movements you're thinking of, Berto, when you look at me and you'd be like, your natty Charles Glass magic eye, what would you think of prescribing?
First, I'm with Brian, because I don't think you're speeding, but you're at the speed limit, right? And you can get away with that for a minute, but then eventually you get pulled over, right? And I think these 2 times you've gone off with a more. The elbow and there, right? So it's something to remember that, I will say this, I think people, they can mess themselves up both ways. You could be a low volume, high intensity guy, or a high volume, I guess low intensity, but you're not pacing yourself necessarily. But still, when you're on the edge at either side, I think it's because here's the thing, it's like if I were to stop training everything, and just focus on my right bicep, I guarantee you my right bicep would be the biggest my right bicep will have ever been 3 years from now, right? And often for advanced guys, that is the issue. Is like your body's like its own parasite.
The resources,
right? Right. So I think with the quad, it might be something like just go with that, because there's more things up there that you need to address in an immediate sense. But maybe like post prep, it'd be something where it's like, okay, let's really focus on these quads. Let's do some risque things with these other body parts for 3 months. Let's see what happens. Similar to me just training my right bicep.
Yeah.
So I think the quad thing can wait. Can wait. But in regards to movements, man, I wish you don't have access to a pendulum.
Pendulum squat?
Yeah.
I do not. I have Smith machine. I have any barbell movement that we want, any dumbbell movement we want, and I have some good leg presses.
You have wedges?
Yeah.
Yeah, some good wedges where, you can squat down and you get as little of the the help from the glutes on the way
Absolutely.
up.
Yeah, I could do Smith machine squats, leaning back into the bar, wedged. Yeah.
Like I think the Smith machine is out of all the movements I've touched this off season, I think that's been the most productive. The only con to that one is I wish it had some sort of constraint, because when things get tough, you start. But yeah, I'd say you don't have to address it now, but I do think long term it will be an issue.
Yeah.
So
bigger quads,
something to consider. But I think the upper body is probably the stuff that it's going well. Let's keep that going. Do address the lat thing. They've improved, but not as well as like other areas. Yeah.
Any thoughts on lat movements that you have found success with, any athletes or yourself, for more the lower kind of belly?
I think it's not just the lower. I think it's like the thoracic portion.
I think it's pretty much everything.
The lats.
Well, I think part of it is just the shape of the muscle belly.
Sure.
Like he said, I don't think it's like, okay, let's not do any thoracic-based rows and just focus on lower. I don't think that's the case. I think I would honestly just do primarily more rows and more kind of neutral grip pulling.
Okay.
Because upper back, I think, is solid. We can kind of put that on maintenance mode. Any sagittal plane pull.
Gotcha.
Just variations of that.
Because we do have one like traditional lat pull down. We could shift that into something neutral grip. And we could potentially do, there are a few spots where I think we could fit in more lat work if we want, or just back work rather.
Yeah. Potentially. I'll look at it and then I'll have to look through it. So much.
Hey, I'm down. And honestly,
You'll do whatever.
I will do anything. And the reason why I have coaches is to make sure I don't do things that I shouldn't do. But I will say the back injury I just got did come after crossing every single time zone on the plan.
Yes.
And the only other oopsies I had just general tendonitis, which is completely resolved, which I have had for years and on half of this volume. Which is, I'm loving that I'm actually not getting elbow tendonitis. And then the hamstring strain I got, I think it was because it was 6 weeks post-show and I was still too lean. Yeah, to be honest. I wasn't sleeping that well yet, So, and that was also like before I had accrued more training time without you than with you at that point. So I was doing, maybe not as ideally well-balanced. I mean, it was 6 days. I mean, you probably had 5, and it was probably 3 lower body days. I was probably going a little too ham on RDLs because I hit a lifetime PB shortly out of the gate, and I was like, let's ride this wave. And it's like, you're not even sleeping for 6 hours regularly. Maybe we don't ride this wave. So, I don't know how much I really am redlining it right now. I think, to be fair, if you travel and you get hurt, that does mean that there's very little recovery to give. But I think in ideal situations, I'm good. I'm feeling pretty solid. So if we wanted to push and pull instead of just pull back or do things, I am capable of all things, but I will leave that decision to the capable hands of the two gentlemen on my left and right.
I want to look at it in front of me.
Cool. Well, next
at it.
Next episode of Believe, what we'll do is we'll actually go over those program changes. We've gotten a preview. We've seen my physique. We brought in my prep coach who has the squinty goggles. And we brought in the off-season coach, and they're mind melding, trying to figure out what's the best way to make me slightly more competitive. I think that's one thing I did want to check in with you in terms of my body composition at this weight. I would guess 90, 91. So just basically right at 200 pounds. And is this leaner or about where we anticipated I'd be at this weight, since we have 2 more kilos to go on the weight gain?
I'd say leaner than I had anticipated.
You heard it here, folks.
Yeah.
Half natty.
And I think you could be even 10, 11%, I think.
Yeah, you think I'm 11? So here's
it's hard.
They're debating. So Berto thinks I'm 13% over stage weight. So somewhere between 80 and 82 kilo stage weight, which is still on the low end, 1.5 kilos heavier than my old stage weight. So we're on point, gentlemen. I'm pretty happy about it. Shoot, anything else you think we need to cover?
We'll see. We need to set up the diet, I guess. That's probably the only thing.
Yeah.
No, that's kind of debatable, right? Because
right now, do we need to even, we would start prep here, basically.
Well, in a few months we set it up so that you can, be at a more reasonable starting point. But I think realistically, once you've matured, you in a year's off season, you shouldn't get yourself so fat that
no,
right?
Yeah.
Because recovery wise, you don't need to go as high afterwards. You only take what you need from a surplus standpoint. So we might not need that. Who knows? Maybe we might do a quick 4-weeker or something. But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't need to spend time there.
So thank you, gentlemen, very much for your time, your expertise, your effort. If I am able to move up the ranks, which is truly, honestly, a secondary goal to do I think I've improved as a pro, then this is as much your victory as mine. So thank you, and we'll see you next time in Believe, where we're going to go over the specific program changes, where I try to talk Brian into more sets to failure and turn a specialization to program into do more of everything. All right, team, take care.